And welcome to the 6th episode of Slot Leader. I'm your host Umed Saidov, and in this episode, we will be talking about the adoption of Cardano technology. Our guest is Shunsuke Murasaki. He is the CEO of Emurgo Indonesia. In today's in-depth interview, we will be covering what he's been doing in Emurgo in order to promote Cardano's blockchain technology. So stay tuned. This is going to be a very interesting interview if you're interested in what the blockchain could do in the future. This week, PayPal grabbed all the attention in the crypto and blockchain space by announcing that they are making cryptocurrencies available on their platform. This is a particularly significant news because PayPal, who also owns Venmo, has more than 350 million users and access to 26 million merchants. This is a huge potential customer base for cryptocurrencies and marks the beginning of acceptance or maybe inroads into the mainstream. It's a particularly great news. I personally think that PayPal is making these moves thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead because this is where we are headed as a global community. I think we are going to see the integration of cryptocurrency networks into the traditional financial networks, and PayPal is right in the middle of both these worlds. So I'm quite excited about this development, and I hope that we will see more of these kind of developments down the road before the end of the year. For those of you who've been watching Project Catalyst, you will notice that all the active proposals in the system have just passed into the next stage, which is the assessment stage. In this assessment stage, projects or proposals will be assessed by the community advisors. There are 672 of them last time I checked, and they need to opine on the quality of these proposals across 3 dimensions. So the first dimension is the impact. The second dimension is auditability, and the third dimension is feasibility. So once those opinions have been formed, then we will get into the voting stage where everybody will vote on their project, on their proposal, the proposals that they like. And we will get to, after that, we will get to a point where the funds will be dispersed from the decentralized fund treasury to finance all these projects. I think we have a maximum of 254 possible projects that could be financed, and we will see how this whole thing will unfold. Personally, I think this is a very exciting and very interesting part of Cardano's ecosystem, and I'm hoping to get somebody from IOG to come on this show to describe what they have in store for us. It's a fascinating part, again, of Cardano's ecosystem, and I would like to know more about that. We saw some interesting price dynamics in the digital asset marketplace this last week, and most notably among them is the price movement of Bitcoin. It started at a very modest level of $11,000, 11.2. This is the last time we looked at the prices, and it started going up at a modest pace. And on the 19th, it started gaining a lot of traction, and it kept going up until 21st, I think. And this is the time when PayPal announced that they are going to accept or allow their customers to buy and sell cryptocurrencies, among them Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash, as far as I remember. Those are the ones that I remember, but there might be others. So, and then we saw an exponential growth of the price of Bitcoin all the way to 13.2 thousand. And I think what we're seeing right now in this graph is profit taking. So it's, the price went down a little bit to the level of 12.7, and it's crept back a little bit, and then it started coming down again. So I don't know where we're gonna go from there, but it looks like the price is bullish, and the space is getting more bullish. I think the announcement was a great catalyst for the markets to react this way, and we might see an uptick in demand as PayPal actually starts rolling out its product where you can buy and sell crypto. And that's where actual demand will come from actual users. Now let's take a look at what happened in ADA's price, in the same sort of time frame. The altcoins did not actually move that much. It looks like they had a choppy looking week since the last time we looked at them. And the ADA price in particular went down at some point to 10 cents. And it's back up to 11.29, which is the highest it's gotten in a while, I think. If you look at the price going back to the 1st of October, it's back at its all-time high, not all-time high. It's back at its October high, I think. So that's not a bad place to be, I think, for ADA at this point. Today we have the CEO of Emurgo Indonesia. His name is Shunsuke Murasaki, and I would like to welcome him to our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me in this podcast. I think it's really cool that Cardano has a couple community-based podcasts, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, Shunsuke, if I could start this conversation with asking you about yourself and telling, if you could tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to the blockchain space.
Sure. I got into this space as basically I joined one of the very early ICOs back in 2016, and that's when I bought Bitcoin for the first time. And the ICO I participate wasn't successful, but it was really great because I understand the concept of blockchain. It was all about kind of decentralized advertisement. You see an ad and you get rewarded in cryptocurrency. So I thought it's really cool because there was nothing like that before that I knew. Then in 2017, I met Ken Kodama, the group CEO of Emurgo, and I joined Emurgo. And the first thing I did at Emurgo was really crazy to organize a Cardano launch event, which is the launch of settlement layer mainnet. So there was good people from all over the world, like Charles Hoskinson, Duncan from HK from London. So that's how I got into the space in Emurgo.
Oh, that's wonderful. And as a CEO of Emurgo Indonesia, I would like to basically ask you about the structure, because we have Emurgo, and then we have Emurgo Indonesia, and I think there's Emurgo India. Can you walk us through the structure of how this entity is structured, and what are the roles, the reasoning behind it?
Right. So Emurgo is one of the founding organizations for Cardano blockchain, and our mandate is to commercialize Cardano blockchain. So what we do is drive the adoption of Cardano and expand Cardano ecosystem in terms of the usage of ADA and the usage of Cardano blockchain. And for that, Emurgo has a headquarters in Singapore. And under the Emurgo Singapore, there's Emurgo Indonesia, focusing on education and traceability solution. And India, strictly focusing on education. And we have operation in the States. Our CTO is in New York. And recently, we formed a joint venture with a company called Blackbird in Israel, so that we can further drive the adoption of our traceability application.
All right, great. When you say education and adoption, what does that mean within the ecosystem of Cardano? Can you give us some examples?
Right. So as I guess as many people know, especially people who's going to watch this podcast, Cardano is going to have smart contract layer pretty soon, Gogen. So we're basically preparing for that. So what I mean by that is we are expanding and we are increasing the number of people who understand blockchain in India and Indonesia, so that when Gogen comes, we can introduce Gogen and then Cardano smart contract in a form of education, in a form of businesses and so on. So that's what we are doing in terms of education. And another question from you, adoption is also the same. We are nurturing business and having partners who introduce blockchain to whatever they are doing. And when Gogen comes, how we plan to migrate our current tech stack with application to Cardano blockchain. So that's what we are doing in terms of education and adoption.
That's great. I personally think that Emurgo is going to gain a lot of prominence as Gogen comes in, because the chain becomes quite usable, and a host of applications could be built on top of that. But considering all of that coming in the quarter 4 2020 or quarter 1 2021, what are the short-term and long-term goals of Morgor as an entity?
Right. For short time, we continue to develop and nurture businesses and relationship with our clients, and we continue to realize the adoption of blockchain in general. So, in short, we acquire more leads, partnership, and companies that are going to migrate to Cardano blockchain. So
right.
some of the example is in Indonesia, there's a coffee company called Blue Kelinci Coffee that has already have a blockchain traceability system, and they are really big fan of Cardano. So that's kind of like what we align with what we are doing in short term. Like we acquire, partners, and we constantly feed the information about like how Cardano is going to be evolved, and so that they, at the time of Gogen, they willing to migrate to Cardano. So that's one thing what we are doing in short term.
Okay. Now, when you talk about partnerships, is this something that involves buying shares in these companies, or you're just basically having a commercial partnership whereby these companies have sort of commercial obligations or legal obligations to build on top of Cardano? What's the nature of these relationships?
The nature of relationship is commercial relationship. So we provide service like our service, or like we provide application to them so that we can add value to their product. So in this case, Blue Kelinci Coffee, they have quite fine Arabica beans coming from a specific region. So they want to prove that they want, because it's a premium beans that won award like a couple years ago. So there's a lot of attention to the beans, so they want to protect it and they want to be transparent about it. So we help, Emurgo helps to do that using blockchain, and there's no like obligation that they really need to move to Cardano. But what we do is to carefully choose, and we elaborate on the benefit, like especially in a security area, and decentralization, in a portion of decentralization of Cardano that it is going to achieve, so that they will be convinced that they want to migrate to Cardano blockchain.
That's wonderful. I can see the use case of coffee becoming a differentiated product rather than a commodity in that respect, because you will have time-stamped movement of these beans from one region to the markets, let's say United States, and it will be verifiable. So my sense is that you develop the tools to verify the entire supply chain. Is that the correct assessment in terms of the coffee beans?
Right. So yeah, that's so from farmer up to consumers. So in Jakarta, Blue Country Coffee has a cafe. So if you go to if you can go to the cafe in Jakarta, you can essentially scan QR code, and you can see the entire supply chain for the farmers, for the collectors involved, and then what was the process, and what process was done, and it's verified between stakeholders. So that's what you can see. And what we're trying to do is to escalate even further, meaning we want to have like inventory management. We want to have kind of integration to accounting system so that they don't need to use like multiple applications. So we really trying to be not only the traceability components, but further escalate the platform so that it's going to be sort of coffee ELP in a way.
Oh, that is wonderful, because that was my kind of next question. Because you cannot, once you have a ledger that tracks let's say your main inventory, then you can basically integrate it into the accounting system or turn it into an accounting system, and taking the price in from a smart contract, you would be able to actually turn this whole thing into an accounting input. But yes, so when you develop these supply chain solutions, and I'm sorry if I'm going too detailed into these things, but when you develop these things, do you have to have contracts with separate entities on each, let's say, the checkpoint? Will there be a business that will be providing its services as a verifier, or is it something that's done by the chain itself? How is it going to work? Is, let's say that from the farmer, let's trace the coffee, right? The farmer produces it, it scans it, puts it into the blockchain as saying that I've got 1 bag of coffee on this date was shipped, and this is the the verification that I put this much coffee in that transport, let's say the truck. The trucking company would have to have also a confirmation that yes, I have received this. So are they all part of the blockchain? Do they have addresses? How does that work?
So how it works is that the if you think about coffee supply chain, that's starting from farmer obviously, and there's collector, processor, roaster, and cafe down to consumer. That's a domestic supply chain. And when it comes to overseas, there from the processor, there's like importer, exporter, importer, and maybe like overseas buyers, like any the coffee big chain that everybody knows. So in that context, when it comes to domestic transaction, basically there is in this project with Blue Country Coffee and the local processor, there was NGO that confirmed the existence of farmer. So there's like a third party verification. So the entire ecosystem will be know that this farmer exists in reality, and once they confirm that they are in the ledger. And farmer, and the next actor is collector, who collect cherry and turn them into parchment beans, and there will be a history of record created at the time of transaction, and that goes to the upstream. And from processor to roaster, there is our transport system, but what we do is to let processor send transaction with some key information like weight information, and also the invoice information, which should be known only to roaster and a processor. So at the time of receiving package at the roastery, roastery will verify the package by the weight information, because along the way there might be some like malicious stuff going on if the weight changes, and they verify the weight as well as invoice and assign on a transaction from its dedicated back office. So that's how it works.
Okay, well that's wonderful. I guess in order for the whole thing to work, you have to have parties being present or having access to the the blockchain, the Cardano blockchain. And by that, I mean every time there is a transfer of coffee beans from, let's say, one entity to another, a transaction is created, thereby demand for ADA is created, because every transaction requires ADA. Is that the right assessment?
So this whole thing has to be done through smart contract. So we're actually using the generic blockchain, so that again, our job is to build businesses and nurture partnership, and so that we can migrate everything to Gauguin and Cardano, put them into the Cardano ecosystem. So at this stage, we are using generic blockchain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you are nurturing them at this point, so that in the future, when Gauguin comes, that they are easily ported into the Cardano. Is that the correct understanding?
Yes, that is a correct understanding, and we can even store a hash of transaction to the Cardano blockchain settlement layer, and I believe this that kind of component has been developed. So we don't say there is zero affiliation to Cardano blockchain, but from Emurgo's standpoint, we need to capture clients and partnerships, so that again, when Gauguin comes, if we start at that point, then that is very late. So we really need to start and enlarge our businesses, so that we can migrate everything to Gauguin and Cardano blockchain later.
Perfect. Now, given the commercial mandate of Emurgo, what kind of partnerships do you see developing within the next 5 years within the Emurgo's ecosystem? What are you working on in your pipeline?
Okay, so in this year alone, there was quite interesting development in at Emurgo. One of the things that our marketing team has done is a partnership with a company called Traveler. Traveler is it's a platform that you can spend cryptocurrency to stay hotels, basically book a travel. So you can spend ADA, across 230 countries, and you can book hotel and travel. So that's one of the things that we can do at this stage with settlement layer, basically with ADA. So that's quite cool stuff, that I would say, especially like putting my illustration into consideration. I originally from Japan, but live in Indonesia. So every time I need to go back to Japan, I need to convert Indonesian rupiah into Japanese yen to make some transaction in Japan. Otherwise, I just use credit card. But if I can use ADA, there's no conversion in between. So I think it's really amazing stuff that our marketing team has done. Other than that, I think the traceability, as I said, is going to be a really cool application that we can apply to any industry, because the software has been designed in a way to accommodate a lot of business processes. So our tech team is studying Cardano and Plutus and so on, so that we can build the same system application using Cardano tech stack. So traceability, agriculture sector is, I think, like partnership that we can build on.
That's wonderful. I would like to basically probe this into the applications of Cardano as it stands today. Well, you mentioned one use case, which is Traveler, right? But can you think of any other applications that could be built, or something that could be that could use the Cardano blockchain as it stands today?
So I think one of the things I believe IOHK has done using current tech stack was the partnership with the sneaker maker. I mean the New Balance, using cryptocurrency card. I believe it was Tangent card and Cardano blockchain very creatively, so that when you receive a pair of sneakers, you have a Tangent card which has a history of a transaction, on the Cardano blockchain, and they have some dedicated application to verify the authenticity of the pair of sneaker. So I think that kind of application can be built or replicated using current tech stack.
Oh, wonderful. Have you been talking to any fashion sort of companies about doing the same thing or expanding that product into other industries?
I remember like we got reached out from the watch the watch company and other company that have higher high value product, but since we have a traceability application right now, so we are we are talking with them using our current application.
Oh, well, that's great. And I would like to take this opportunity to go into the economic sort of implications of what you've been doing so far. Have you seen any economic traction from the partnerships you've managed to gain so far? And if there is any kind of statistics that you would like to share with us in terms of transactions that they have generated on the main ledger, types of value added to the ecosystem that we can account for right now, that would be great for our listeners and viewers.
Right. It's a really good question. I think the biggest promise that blockchain technology made in general is like you can either reduce the cost or add extra value to the product. I think that's the main kind of like mainstream promise that blockchain technology does. And to answer your question, like we did, and that is the our coffee traceability application. We implemented to coffee processor in a region called Sumatra. I believe it's quite famous as a coffee region in Indonesia. So what's interesting thing happened to them is they successfully increased the price per kilo by 12% to 10% of coffee buyers overseas. So they're doing like 230 tons a year, and they're already doing like 4%. So it's like a 10 ton up until 12 tons. They increased 10% to 12%. Because they are more transparent in sourcing. If you think about it, in this specific situation, COVID-19, buyers cannot come to the harvest season to check how the cherries, what's the process, like is the process being done properly? We cannot really travel at this moment. So what Emurgo really helped in the processor is to digitize transparency that they're doing and nicely package in the applications so that the information can transparently convey to the buyers. And for that transparency, buyer are willing to pay more. I mean, some of the buyer are willing to pay more for the coffee beans. So I think that's kind of really beautiful. Like we're really empowering sort of small medium enterprise to thrive in the global market, and there is actually tangible benefit attached to it.
Oh, that's great. And now going into the applications a little bit further, I see that Emurgo has medical records and the financial industry listed as potential applications for this technology. Do you think that Emurgo is going to foster the growth of these industries using Cardano blockchain within the next 1 or 2 years? And if you have any information about the pipeline that you could share, that would be great too.
Sure. Because of the nature of business, like we are not really at liberty to disclose, so I cannot really say names and so on. But
Yeah.
I think in the financial area, I think what's really interesting in it's the research we have done with Algo, which is an Oracle core that Nicholas and all the R&D team are collaborating. So it's a really great concept. As far as I know, extended UTXO that will harmonize with Cardano blockchain, because Cardano blockchain is basically like UTXO model. So I think we can as Emurgo, we can leverage this Oracle pool for the DeFi space alongside with the Golden release.
Okay. So what kind of potential products do you think we could produce on or reproduce on Cardano's blockchain? I mean, one of the applications that I think about constantly is insurance or pensions, for that matter. One of the biggest problems, and I grew up in Soviet Union when it fell apart. My parents basically lost every savings that they had, and that was because of the systemic failure of a government. Right now, I'm thinking, if there was a way to have a pension system that is independent of the of what happens to the government. And now we, in Western countries and developed countries, we are much more secure in our beliefs in the system. But the emerging markets change regimes quite often, and that is quite disruptive to people's livelihoods. So I'm thinking, if there is a way for them to have access to a product where you contribute every now and then a certain amount of money, and then it takes that money and invests automatically, let's say, so using smart contracts, and then at the end of your retirement period or some period, you get your pension. Similarly, you could argue the same kind of mechanism, implementation of the same mechanism for the insurance. You make your premium payments, and then once something happens, let's say your car gets totaled, etc., the oracles read that information and then disperse the amount that the insurance was supposed to disperse. And this process could be all automated without any third-party intervention, and improve the fidelity and the security of these markets, instruments as a whole. Do you guys think along those lines in terms of developing products like that?
Yeah, by all means. I mean, I currently live in a country like Indonesia, and Indonesia really has similar issues, just like you mentioned, like insurance system and especially medical record. So there are tons of problems to be solved, and medical record or pension is just tip of iceberg. So right now our focus is traceability, as I said. So we want to take this to kind of like traceability plus ELP type of system, so that, like, talking just an example, the coffee processor that I mentioned in the region, because of the belief, this country is like a Muslim country, so they don't like to earn interest, or
Okay.
they kind of don't like banks because they earn interest. So there's like every major bank has two banks, bank and the Sharia type of banks, which is like Islamic concept of banks. So I think it's quite interesting to explore how blockchain can harmonize with the idea of Muslim and Islam, because they have different type of different way of thinking and looking into the how finance works. So that's, as far as I go, I think it's the most exciting area that I really want to explore.
Oh, that's wonderful, because I remember when I was working in the World Bank, we had units looking into Islamic finance. It's basically financial products with different types of properties, and that circumvent the idea of interest, or and I, so if I, as far as I remember, the they prefer to be participating in profits rather than just basically charging interest. I mean,
Right.
that's basically, it's a quasi equity or equity type of investment rather than earning interest. But yes, it's interesting that you are thinking about financial products in that regard, because I think blockchain offers greatest benefit in that area. So in terms of markets, geographically, can you tell us where you are present and where you would like to expand to?
Sure. as said in the beginning, we have local business units. I'm at Indonesia, so my job is to expand adoption of whatever the product, like our traceability product, and going forward, Cardano related product, adopted in major companies, and also educate young talents in Indonesia so that they can learn how Cardano blockchain works, and they can build, products where they can either get a job at the company that adopt Cardano blockchain. So Indonesia is definitely a focus, but India is, as everybody knows, it's a pool of developers. So that's why we really focus on education. The CEO at Emurgo India, EV, is not only doing blockchain education. We recently partnered with Hyperledger, just like IOHK did, to be our official training partners. So that's kind of like enterprise education play. So India is also going to be our focus in terms of building and nurturing talent, so that we can push the industry as a forward. We're not really focusing on Emurgo's talent itself. We just want to push the industry forward. I think this is what I think, but the pie is very large, so we don't really need to compete. We should rather push the industry forward. So India is definitely going to be our focus in terms of like having more talents and pushing education forward. And last and not least, Israel, on recent partnership with Blackboard, and that company has really major company in portfolio. One of the company that Nico and the team has signed MOU was Ahaba, the large multinational cosmetic company, or Angel Bakery, which is one of the largest bakery in Israel. So in Israel, we want to sort of accelerate adoption of Emurgo traceability in much larger scale company.
Mhm.
So those three area jurisdictions are current focus of Emurgo.
That's wonderful. Any plans to go into the African continent?
Yeah, by all means, yes. Like Ethiopia is well known for coffee, and also with Argo and all the DeFi things, or stable token even from the partnership with IHK, is probably a really great fit for the African countries. So yeah, definitely our focus.
All right. And I want to go into the difficulties you've faced so far in terms of integrating blockchain or providing blockchain solutions to an array of problems. What are the major problems or impediments to blockchain adoption you've seen so far, and how do you think Emurgo can address them?
What I see two major issues is that one of them is awareness at the government level. So it be like it's kind of cascades into regulation. If the government is not really friendly about blockchain or data security or cryptocurrency, we cannot really do much in that country. So we have to constantly sort of advocate, educate government and then major people at the ministry, what is blockchain and how it can harmonize with existing system and so on and so forth. So that's one of the difficulty we witnessed so far. And the second thing is adoption at enterprise. The big adoption enterprise brings employment. So we need to get enterprise understand what is blockchain and how it works and what is the benefit of it. So those are the two difficulties that we witness, and how Emurgo can contribute to that is just like we have been doing. We have a business unit that is doing education at India and Indonesia. So I think we constantly educating the market, educating corporate, and that's how we believe that we can push blockchain forward.
That's great. And I want to turn this question a little bit on the flip side. Among the countries that you've seen that accept blockchain, what was their aha moment when they said, oh, wow, okay, I like the blockchain. I would like to do something with it. What was the selling point there that broke the ice, so to say?
I see. In Indonesia, I can talk from my experience at Indonesia. I think a really traceability system is one of the thing, one of the ministry open their eyes. We actually working with one of the ministries in Indonesia. They have premium coffee that goes to coffee company that everybody knows, but they have been asked for traceability because in the developed countries, it really matters. Like if there was not any exploitation and how transparent the coffee source, and they have been coping with kind of manual transparency. They are building a record of transaction in paper, and at the time of transaction, they just explain everything to them, and that was how it was working. But when Indonesia developed Emurgo traceability and implemented to Blue Kelinci Coffee and the processing in Sumatra, we luckily had a chance to work with that ministry, and there was nothing like this before, and it was very helpful too for them to transparently explain what they're doing. So I think that's kind of explain like aha moment.
All right. Have you ever had talks with governments about taxation and how the blockchain could facilitate taxation? For instance, if let's say the records of companies existed on a blockchain, then you wouldn't have to have massive investments in the internal revenue services that would go out and try to levy the taxes, but everything in would be more or less automatic. You would say you would have the revenues, and then you would have approved costs, and then the taxation would automatically apply to your profits. For instance, I could see that happening in the future, of course. But did you guys talk about that part of the blockchain applicability? Because a lot of governments have pain points in terms of taxations. They don't know which entity earned how much, especially in developing countries, because everything is on paper, right? And that could probably improve the the transparency and the efficiency of the taxation system for them.
Right. In the future, I do believe what you're saying is really going to help, government and the authority. But in Indonesia, like as far as I know, like it's still early stage. There's in Indonesia, like cryptocurrency commodity trading has been approved. I think about a year ago. So they haven't really got into the stage as far as I know. Yeah, so simply didn't have chance to talk in that area. Yeah.
Okay. Now about the your vision about where do you think the Cardano community and Cardano blockchain will go in 1 or 2 short years, because you have some visibility that others probably don't. Where do you see the Cardano community go in 1 or 2 years? What kind of applications we're likely to see, given the fact that you whatever you've seen so far in terms of your interactions with enterprises and governments?
I see. First of all, I really like the degree of decentralization. Obviously, you run in a pool, right? And I think it's beautiful. Like on Daedalus, on daily basis, you see the nice parameter of like how decentralized Cardano is. And I think there's nothing like that before. And I really like the concept and the philosophy of decentralization that IHK and Charles just always advocate. So I really matters for the government and the big enterprise not to have a fork, because once it gets, blockchain has a fork, then there's one currency, or like there's one school of thought and the other school of thought, like how they're going to reconcile with it. So the overall sentiment on Cardano blockchain as a whole is, I think it's really nicely organized, like decentralized governance, and then really decentralized as a blockchain, and probably like in a form of entity as well, because IOGK is doing tech, and Cardano Foundation is basically a non-profit organization that is opening the door for all the jurisdiction, how Cardano blockchain can be harmonized into the regulatory perspective and all the stuff in each jurisdiction, and Emurgo is doing commercialization. So again, the sentiment that we always get is like Cardano is nicely decentralized, and the idea of not really going to have a fork is going to be very useful for enterprise level adoption.
All right. That's great. And if I can ask you about, because I think early on when I read about Emurgo, I was under the impression that Emurgo invests directly into companies that provide different solutions, sort of being a VC arm of the Cardano ecosystem. Is this still a case? And if that's the case, do you have any list of companies that you've invested in at seed stage, or any stage, and what have they produced so far?
Right. So that's true. Emurgo has a business that is doing investment, and the one of the most recent is Israel partnership with Blackbird, so that we can even accelerate enterprise adoption using Emurgo traceability. So that's one of the case. And for the other case, if you're aware, we had a partnership with a company called SOSB. And we had and through that acceleration program, we got a couple cool companies like Helixworks that is trying to do blockchain on the DNA molecular. It's a next level product verification that you cannot really see it, because it's just molecular sequence, and it's a transparent, you can apply to any kind of product. So that's really cool stuff. And other company is like Simple, which Emurgo invested through the collaboration with SOSB, which already have some traction in the disaster area in a form of aid sourcing using cryptocurrency. So that are the main, there's actually more company. But if you go to that website, you can actually see like what other individual products that we invested in.
I see. I mean, in a nutshell, would you be able to describe what are the selection criteria for your investments? I know that probably the document exists somewhere, and I'll probably look it up and post it for our viewers and listeners. But if you could just give us a flavor of what do you consider when you decide to invest in a company?
Yeah, there's a dedicated investment team in Singapore, and we have investment board. So every investment kind of judgment will be done by the team. I'm not really so involved in that team, so I cannot really talk about that much. But what I can say is like we always looking for project that has fundamental understanding of what is Cardano blockchain, and what's the nature of Cardano blockchain, and how their service and product can harmonize with blockchain. And we really strictly focusing on actual use case that's good for the society. So it's in a nutshell, it's not like a really money making project, but it's actually brings some value and benefit to the society as a whole. So that's really, it's kind of vague, but that's kind of criteria that we always chase for. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming today, Shunsuke. I really appreciate your time. I had a wealth of knowledge, doing this interview with you. And if you have any closing remarks, this would be the time.
Oh, thank you very much. So I think I want to take this opportunity to sort of promote what Emurgo Indonesia is doing. in education area, we are doing quite interesting stuff, which is something called Kampus Merdeka. It's an Indonesia word for independent for learning. So this policy was announced by the new education minister in Indonesia, who used to be the CEO of ride-hailing service Gojek. It's a unicorn company, just like Uber. So what we are doing is educate young university students, and then we're going to sort of send them to companies that we already implemented blockchain solution, so they can not only learn theory, but actually they can exercise what they have learned from our program and apply that in the real workspace who has blockchain application already. So it's kind of go back to the narrative, like how Emurgo can contribute, blockchain industry and the Cardano ecosystem in general. So we at Emurgo Indonesia, we provide education, and also we nicely harmonize education into the adoption of enterprise. And for that, we always go trying to involve young students for that, kind of ecosystem. So that's one of the model we have established, and with the Gogen coming along the way, we're trying to replicate the same model for the blockchain technical course. So I hope that we can produce much more, many young talents who's going to be focused on Cardano blockchain.
This concludes episode number 6 of Slot Leader today. I hope you enjoyed our interview with Shunsuke Murasaki, the CEO of Emurgo Indonesia. If you like the content of the interviews that we are putting together for you guys, please don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time.